It's your girl, your host, Jocelyn, y como siempre, I am so grateful you are here, and I'm so grateful to be back in the new year of 2023. Your girl really missed publishing episodes and conversing with you all and conversing with guests and being in this safe space, having these conversations with you all as a community. But the truth is, your girl, she needed a break. She needed to take a step back for a couple of months from publishing new episodes to really just integrate all that this past year has been and to really be intentional about how it is that I'd like to move forward in all of my creations and all that I am and who I'm becoming. So for those of you who have been here, who have been checking back to see when a new episode is publishing, I just want to thank you so much for being here. I want to thank you for your patience and understanding and for your support. I want to thank all of you who have left a rating and a review. That is just so helpful. And for all of you who have been listening, if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. This podcast is also available on YouTube if you want to watch these episodes. And if you have yet to drop a rating and review, please, your girl would really appreciate if you head on over to Apple Podcasts and share your thoughts with the world about this podcast and why it is that you tune in and what it is that you receive from it. I, again, would just appreciate that so much because it helps the growth of this podcast and of our community. I am very much looking forward to all that this upcoming year is to gift us, all the miracles that are unfolding before us and all the continued ascension that each and every single one of us is going to continue to experience. And I just want to say that the growth that this podcast has experienced in the past year has been tremendous. It's left me in awe and just soul fulfilled. So again, thank you all so much for being here. And I'm just so excited to get back into speaking with you all and having these conversations. So thank you so much for being here. And let's go ahead and get into this first episode of 2023. I am so grateful that I allow myself and have allowed myself to quote unquote start over and renew and pivot, especially in the past couple of years. And I'd like to start this conversation by saying that I don't fully believe that we are ever really starting over. Starting over, in my opinion, is an illusion. I believe that we are either simply starting or starting over with experience. And that's really important to acknowledge because the idea of starting over can seem very daunting, overwhelming, regressive even, so much so that it scares most people out of gifting themselves new life. And that's exactly what quote unquote starting over is, right? It's us gifting ourselves new life. It's renewal. It's growth. It's completing and graduating from a cycle. It's honestly ascension. Let's look to nature as an example. In autumn, we get to witness all of nature in allowance and acceptance of renewal. We get to witness all of nature surrender to the process of growth. And we see that the process of growth includes letting go. It includes, quote unquote, starting over. What we fear in starting over is what we witness in nature during winter. We fear the result of surrender and the stillness, the solitude, the silence that follows. But what we fail to see in the depths and dormancy of this season is that all of nature is still very much so alive. The consciousness is still there. The purposefulness is still there. The growth is still there. The wisdom is still there. And this season is necessary for growth. There is no skipping, quote unquote, starting over, or rather renewal really, to experience growth. Renewal and all that renewal comes with is a part of the growth process. There is no skipping autumn and winter to get to spring and summer. Growth happens when we allow endings and new beginnings to happen. So rather than seeing starting over as starting over in such a way that has you feeling discouraged, I encourage you to see it as starting over with experience, as the renewal it is, as a necessary part of the growth process, as the completion of a cycle. And the same applies to pivoting, right? Because when we pivot in relationships, in career, in life, we are essentially, quote unquote, starting over. My intention for this conversation that you and I are about to have is to shift your perspective in such a way that you feel empowered to quote unquote start over and pivot, is to have you walking away feeling confident and comfortable, clear-minded and clear-hearted about starting over, because I'm guessing that if you press play on this episode, you are somehow, some way seeking to feel this way. Moving forward in this conversation, as I keep bringing up the words starting over, I encourage you to see and receive those words as renewal. I'm going to be sharing some of my own reflections and realizations regarding starting over and pivoting, as well as some prompts and affirmations. I sincerely know that the thought of starting over can trigger fears and insecurities, and the process of starting over isn't necessarily glamorous, but I also sincerely know that starting over with experience is a sacred and integral part of life, and we are deserving of befriending it. I was telling a friend recently that I realized it takes a lot of courage and faith to step back and pivot from something that got you far. But when you feel that something is just not for you anymore, it's important to honor that, even if you're uncertain about what's next. In just the past couple of years, your girl has experienced all types of pivots. Pivots I did not choose and pivots I consciously chose. Pivots in friendship, in partnership, in career, in home, in mindset, in beliefs, in spirits, in commitments. Pivoting from people, places, things that I loved, still love, that got me far in life, that I thought would last forever, that I never imagined pivoting from, but knew deep down that the pivot needed to happen. Some of these pivots were delayed, prolonged, avoided for too long. And I noticed that the longer I went without pivoting out of fear of starting over or missing out or what others may think or what have you, the more I began to feel burdened, confined, and out of alignment. In 2020, I was faced with experiences that left me with no choice but to pivot, which I feel so many of us can relate to. But after that, and since then, I've been very intentional about actively, confidently choosing to pivot as I feel called, about surrendering to necessary changes with the least resistance, about allowing myself to reinvent myself and quote unquote start over and expand my perception on all that starting over is and why it's important. I mean, the truth is that pivoting is not new to me, nor is it new to you. Whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we honestly pivot all the time. And I am someone who has allowed herself to start over and pivot most of her life. I am someone who has done and continues to do a lot of intentional exploring and trying and failing and succeeding and starting and ending and starting again. As a Scorpio and as a manifesting generator, intentionally and actively starting over and pivoting as many times as needed is in my nature. There have been so many paths I've walked and ventured in and stayed in and left behind. But something about the past couple of years just hit different. The lessons hit different. The realizations hit different. The understandings hit different. The healings hit different. The changes hit different. The awakenings hit different. Everything for me has felt like it's had more depth, more substance, more impact, and more seriousness, yet lightness all at once. Part of the reasoning for that is the fact that we truly are in the midst of a great collective awakening, and I truly do believe that. And also the fact that during a pandemic, your girl has been experiencing her Saturn return, which has gifted me the most profound healing and awakening. And for those that are unaware of what a Saturn return is, Saturn returns are most commonly known as quarter life and midlife crises, which are a time in one's life where the direction and quality of one's life are greatly assessed. Starting over and pivoting in the past for me was more so about finding my true self. And now starting over and pivoting is more so about not losing my true self, about honoring my true self. I can't exactly explain it, but that shift is significant. There's a different energy to it. I feel like the older you get and the more you heal and the more you awaken to your truth and to your worth, the more willing you become to start over, the more willing you become to pivot, the more willing you become to renewal, the more willing you become to letting go of what and who no longer serves you and your highest good. Because you realize that it's all a natural part of the process, and being resistant to it has only ever held you back and weighed you down. And I feel like this willingness has been increasing for so many people. I know there has been this collective energy of no longer wanting to waste any more time, of no longer getting in our own way, of no longer being resistant to the flow of life and making life harder on ourselves, of no longer accepting less than we deserve and settling, of no longer letting life pass us by in any way, shape, or form. And I love that. I love that for us. I love feeling and witnessing more and more people taking initiative to living more whole, harmonic, and authentic lives. And this is part of the reason why I felt called to have this conversation with you now. I do feel this conversation about starting over and pivoting is timely. Let's take a moment, let's take a breather and talk about our partner, Athletic Greens, who I'm so grateful for. They support this podcast, this community, the conversations we have here, and they support our overall health and well-being. Last year, they introduced me to one of their products called AG1, and I'm telling you, it's been a game changer for you, girl. I've been taking AG1 every single morning for the past few months, after I get home from the gym and before I have breakfast. And again, like I just said, it's been a game changer, and I'm so excited to tell you just a bit more about it. So what is AG1? With one scoop of AG1, you are absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, literally all the things. It's such a great product, and I love that it's lifestyle friendly. So whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it's friendly for your lifestyle of choice, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. I'm keeping it real with you all. This product sincerely tastes so good, and it costs you less than $3 a day. So it's such a great investment. If you're looking for a product to invest in for your overall health and well-being, I'm telling you, AG1 is definitely a product to look into. And right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/SWG. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/SWG to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I have left a link in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get back into this great conversation. Earlier, I mentioned that what we fear in starting over is what we witness in nature during winter. We fear the results of surrender and the stillness, the solitude, the silence that follows. And this is one of the greatest things we've been challenged with in the past couple of years, right? And in life in general, the challenge of letting go of the familiar and surrendering to the unknown. And something that I realized regarding this fear is that it's a lack mindset. It's a limited mindset. When we fear letting go of what's familiar, when we fear surrendering to the unknown, we are rooted in lack and limitation. The reason why I say this is because when we have an abundant mindset, when we think and live in abundance, we don't have these fears. We don't fear letting go and surrendering because we don't see letting go and surrendering as having less or as missing out in any way, shape, or form. When we truly think and live in abundance, we don't impose limitations on ourselves, which is what fears do. They limit us. We fear starting over in a relationship because we fear that there won't be another relationship for us. We fear starting over in a career because we fear there won't be another career for us. We fear starting over in life because we fear there won't be another life for us. We fear starting over because we fear we'll be missing out on the relationship, the career, or the life that we had. And sometimes it's not just that we perceive starting over as having less or missing out, but as us having wasted time, which is also rooted in lack and limitation. We fear starting over in a relationship or in a career or in life in general because we already spent so much time and energy in this relationship or career or identity that we attached ourselves to. Attaching ourselves to the past is absolutely a limitation. And we know this. We know and are increasingly becoming more aware of all the ways attaching ourselves to our pasts limit us. So then the prompts here are, when you find yourself fearing starting over, fearing pivoting, go a little deeper and ask yourself, what am I fearing of lacking? What am I fearing missing out on? What identity am I attached to? What new possibilities am I limiting myself from? I think pivoting careers is particularly difficult in this society because so much of our identity, our sense of self-worth, as well as our survival is tied to our careers. We not only introduce ourselves to the world with our career titles, but that's also how we primarily, quote unquote, advance in this society. Through our career experience and the relationship/network we develop along the way, and the hierarchies we reach for. When pivoting from a career, there's truly so much to consider, and it's often a battle between the mind and the heart, the ego and the spirit. I mean, really, these battles are the greatest battles of the human experience. Without naming specifics, there was one particular career pivot in my life that was the most challenging. I had felt in my gut for quite some time that I had to move on from it, but I was in denial. I was in denial because how could something that once was a dream of mine no longer be a dream of mine? I was in denial because how could I pivot from something that I had invested so much of my time and energy in, from something I worked so hard on building, from something that I, quote unquote, made a name for myself from something that got me far, from something that got others far, from something that I still honestly love and care so deeply about. But the longer I went in denial, the more I felt burdened, the more I felt confined, the more I felt out of alignment with the flow of the universe. My ego was leading me one way and my spirit was leading me another. Eventually, it does get to the point where you just can't take the weight of resistance anymore and you surrender. When I gained the perspective that I completed my mission and it was time to move on to a new mission, it changed everything for me. I am a very service-based person. I prioritize being of service in this life. Being resourceful is truly one of my greatest passions. So realizing that Spirit was leading me in a new direction because my mission was complete and it was time to move on to the next one, it shifted my energy from feeling lack to feeling whole. I kind of felt like a superhero of sorts who realized my time here is done. It's time to move on and help others. Because the truth is, when you intuitively feel called to start over and pivot, it's a sign that you've completed a cycle and it's time to move on to a new one. And that's such a beautiful thing. Completing a cycle is worth celebrating, honestly. Like, wow, I came, I saw, I conquered, and now it's time to move on. And also, the truth is that when we complete a cycle and we know we have to move on, we don't always know what exactly we're moving on to, and we have to have faith in the unknown. We have to trust the mystery of life. And it's a process. Starting over is a process. And again, we see this process in nature. Nature doesn't just immediately transition from autumn to spring, from winter to summer. There's a process of letting go, and there's a process of letting in. There's a process of giving, and there's a process of receiving. There's a process of death, and there's a process of rebirth. We truly deserve to gift ourselves so much grace and compassion and understanding when we are in these deeply transformative seasons. Aside from gaining the perspective of completing my mission, I also really had to allow myself to gain the perspective of I'm not simply starting over. I'm starting over with experience, which is so important. When we think we are simply starting over, we feel like we're stepping into this new venture with nothing, but that is never the case. When we pivot into a new relationship, we are pivoting into it with all the relationship experience we've had up to that point. When we pivot into a new career, we're pivoting into it with all the career experience we've had up to that point. It's so important that we acknowledge and honor our life experiences because all of our life experiences serve as wisdom. In this life, we are never empty-handed, and I firmly believe that. At the end of the day, when all is said and done, if you want to grow and expand into your higher potentials, you have to allow yourself to start over. You have to allow yourself to pivot. You will only grow more burdened and confined when you resist your renewal. And you are so worthy of experiencing your higher potentials in every aspect of your life. All right, y'all. We have reached the end of our conversation, but before I let you go, I definitely want to offer you some affirmations. So if you'd like to open yourself up to receive these affirmations, now is the time. If you'd like to grab a journal to write these affirmations down, go ahead and do so. If you'd like to put your hand over your heart to really intentionally open yourself up to receive, if you'd like to repeat these affirmations after me, I encourage you to do whatever it is that you feel called in this moment. I am capable of completing cycles and stepping into new cycles because it is in my true nature. I trust life to lead me to where I am meant to go and who I am meant to be, even in the unknowns and uncertainty. I journey through transitions and transformations with the grace, compassion, and understanding I deserve. I am never empty-handed. I have an abundance of knowledge and wisdom meant to serve me in fulfilling my missions. I allow myself to start over and pivot as often as needed because I am worthy of experiencing my higher potentials. Whew, what a conversation you and I just had. I pray again that you are walking away from this episode feeling more confident, comfortable, clear-minded, and clear-hearted about starting over with experience and pivoting whenever it is that you feel called in your journey. I pray that your perspective has expanded in such a way that you feel encouraged and I thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for being a part of this podcast community. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And remember that these episodes are available to watch on YouTube as well. If you haven't already rated and reviewed this podcast, make sure to share a rating and review whenever it is that you enjoy an episode. Share these episodes with your loved ones whenever it is you feel that they may benefit from one of these conversations. Thank you again so much for being here. I so look forward to having a conversation with you, to sharing conversation with you in the next episode. So much love and gratitude, your girl, your host, Jocelyn.